Hi, everyone. Okay, so tonight I received an email from Manitoba Human Rights. This video is only going to be a short video because in the next few days, I do plan on going into um, that order in depth and talking about the kids. The last few videos, I've focused mostly on financial stuff. And the reason being for that is because the part with the kids is a video onto its own. So the next video is probably going to be about half an hour to an hour in length. And um and so there's going to be there's going to be a lot to go over. But I wanted to make this video tonight just to give you guys a heads up that that's how long the next one's going to be. And also because I did receive communication from Manitoba Human Rights in regards to the human rights complaint I put in about not being able to see the kids and um, Child and Family Services part in it. So and I'm gonna talk about this just briefly, and then we'll go into it more in depth in the next video. So, back on April 13th, 2022, there was okay, sorry. I'm gonna backtrack here for a second. So I put in a human rights complaint, and um today I got um communication back, and I closed it down by accident. Um okay, so I got communication back, and it says um sorry, give me a second here. We'll go over the letter in depth next time, but the conclusion that they came to, and this is just the early assessment. They basically said because it's a King of Courts bench thing that it's out of their jurisdiction. That is what they're saying. But I'm going to be responding to them saying that that's not true because um, what happened with the kids being denied to me happened before the order even took place. So that is what I'm going to be doing in the next little bit. But I wanted to talk about the kids, and I'm going to talk about it just briefly, and I'll show you guys everything in the next video. We're going to go over um, the court ordered home assessment. And it's interesting because April 13th, 2022, um, I went to this hearing, and keep in mind, I was going to hearings every sometimes every couple weeks, and like it was, and I was hearing from his lawyer every day. It was literal litigation harassment, litigation abuse. Um, so, anyways, so when when all that was taking place, and it seemed like every single time I walked into the courtroom, I was being degraded by the judge um, or losing something. And April 13th, 2022, I literally broke down, and I um I got off the phone, and I called the court ordered assessment person, the and I asked her a bunch of questions like um I remember saying to her, like, the judge seems to think I'm a horrible person. You've been in my home, you've seen me with the kids, you've seen the kids with me. Do you think I'm a horrible person? That kind of thing. Like, I was really having I was really having a meltdown. Um and she basically said no, she didn't, and she didn't know what to say about what happened in the courtroom and all this and that. And I I said to her, "I haven't slept in probably 72 hours because I've been so upset about everything that's been going on with the court process, and I couldn't even I to this day, the thought of walking into a courtroom sends me into a panic attack. Like, I can't do it." And, um, that's trauma. That's trauma from what happened. And what happened literally was litigation abuse, and it was abused by the lawyers, it was abused by the judge, the Justice Peterson, Justice Thompson, um, I think that's his name, the justice who did the, the court hearing, the final court hearing, custody trial. But anyways, it was litigation abuse because my rights were constantly being denied. I was constantly being degraded. And um and when I did finally break down and um being a social worker, I knew the signs, I knew what was happening to me, and I knew that I needed help. And um I called the court assessment person. And she said to me, do you think I need to call the police?" And I said, "Yes, I think you do because I'm like I was I was having a meltdown. I was so upset and I couldn't sleep and um I told her I was going to start taking sleeping pills because I couldn't sleep and I needed to sleep. Um and like I was absolutely physically, mentally exhausted. And that is what this judge and that lawyer were doing. That is the effect they were having. And um and it shouldn't have happened. I should have been allowed a lawyer. I should have well, in that hearing I did have a lawyer. My lawyer really didn't do too much though. And um anyways, so police came to the house, and by this point, I was asleep. I had taken a couple sleeping pills, not enough to hurt myself, but enough to knock me out. And I don't know if I would have or not if I hadn't fallen asleep, but um, I was like the kids weren't with me, and I would never have done anything like that when the kids were with me. And um To the person texting me, I'm talking to everybody. I'm making these recordings for my kids because I don't know when the next time I'm going to see them is. And should something happen to me tomorrow or the next day or the day after, I want them to know who I am. I want them to know what I've gone through. I want them to know that I've never stopped thinking about them. And I want them to know that I love them and I tried to do everything I could. But in the end, um, the abuse of the system and um, the failure of the justice system, you know. And no, it wasn't Xanax. It was a medication my doctor prescribed to me. But it said take so much as needed to max, but I didn't pay attention to the max. Let's just put it that way. I wasn't intending to overdose or anything else, but I needed to fall asleep and I needed to fall asleep soon. Otherwise, I was going to do something stupid. And um, Yeah, I did work to get my kids back, but the sorry, somebody's texting me asking me if I worked your steps to get my kids back. CFS never gave me any steps to follow. They didn't put in a plan in place like they're supposed to. They didn't do anything to work with me. Like, anyways, this person saying, no, don't do anything bad, take one day at a time. Yeah, I know that. It's been years since the trial, and I know that. And no, I'm not even considering that anymore. It just at the time I was in court every other day, well, every month, if not every couple weeks, and I was getting harassed daily by lawyers. And it was very traumatic. It was very stressful, and it was an abuse of power. Um, and so, but it was interesting because the court order's assessment basically said they couldn't determine who the better parent would it be for the kids to stay with, whether it would have been me or him. And the next day, CFS literally came in and placed the kids with him. They manipulated the court proceedings. And um, and then Justice Peterson denied me time in order to get a legal aid to get me a lawyer because legal aid wasn't able to find me a lawyer in time for the trial. And the trial proceeded. She said that, well, if legal aid couldn't find me a lawyer in time for the trial, um, that I was going to have to self represent. Now, I was already in a state where I was completely completely stressed out to the max. So to be forced into that situation, again, litigation abuse. Um, Now, when the trial happened, um, I didn't attend, to be honest. I didn't, and it wasn't because I didn't care about my kids. It's because I knew up until this point nobody was listening to me, and if this judge decided to proceed with the trial, it wasn't going to matter if I was there or not because Justice Peterson previously said that if legal aid couldn't find me a lawyer in time for the trial, I was going to be forced to self represent. Well, I was in no position to self represent, and um, not showing up, I thought was my best chance to have an appeal. But then a couple weeks later, I went back to file paperwork for an appeal, and I was denied the appeal. Um, they wouldn't even take the paperwork for the appeal. I had somebody come with me as a witness to this, and they wouldn't even take the paperwork for the appeal. And see, this is part of the reason why um I think the Manitoba system is being more ran like a cult um versus a democracy, because in a democracy we have laws, we have procedures, we have guidelines that the judges, justices are supposed to follow, and that didn't happen at this in this. Like the Canadian Constitution is supposed to be the supreme law of Canada, and it's written right in the Constitution. And I think it's actually one of the last footnotes in the Constitution, or one of the last things in the Constitution, where it says, that if that the Constitution is the supreme law in Canada. If there's another something else that contradicts the Constitution, the Constitution supersedes anything else. And your everybody's Canadian rights is written right into the Canadian Constitution, and my Canadian rights meant nothing in these hearings or the trial. But anyways, this video is already a lot longer than I intended it to be. We'll be going over all the paperwork in the next video. In the next video, I was going to talk about domestic abuse and stats and all that, but I'm not going to do that because I want to talk about the kids. And I was going to wait for one other piece of paperwork before I did that, but I'm on a time frame with responding to the Manitoba Human Rights Commission, and I really feel that I'm not going to wait for that piece of paperwork. I'll show it to you guys later on, but that's what I'm going to do. We're going to talk about the kids in the next video, and I'll show you guys pictures as well. All right, you guys have a good evening, and we'll talk to you soon. I don't know when the next video is going to be because I do have to prepare for it. It'll probably be within the next week, if not possibly on the weekend. I'm not 100% sure. Have a good night.